It's something that impacts us all, where we go, the time we're out, and most importantly, our sense of security. We're talking about crime, a growing problem that has a newly elected parish president and mayor considering asking the governor for help now. When we think of crime, our minds often go to deadly shootings. But it's so much more than that. Being robbed, having your home broken into, your car stolen, or even an unexpected encounter with a stranger can rattle you forever. As we begin 2025, the headlines have been relentless. Young teenagers shooting and killing people. A mother turning in her own teenager's son for murder. A grandmother shot and killed in front of her 8-year-old grandson. And weekends in Baton Rouge often end with multiple non fatal shootings. This week, we take a hard look at crime and its far reaching impacts. This is Louisiana Unfiltered. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to do a little bit of a different podcast today. You get me and me only. Number one, thank you for putting up with us last week. I know we had to skip, and that's because we had snowpocalypse last week, or however you want to call it, but a historic snowstorm in Baton Rouge, or should I say South Louisiana. Beautiful for those of you who are listeners that are outside of Louisiana, first time for Louisiana in our lifetimes, should I say, because the last time the most historic snowfall was in 1899, believe it or not, on Valentine's Day and the day before. So this was beautiful, but yeah, after a day or two, I think majority of people were done with it. They were ready to get out, but we got locked up in our homes for days. And I think a lot of people were just like, we don't know what to do. So props to the people up north because I don't know if I could do all that. So we did have to skip a podcast last week, but we are back this week. And I know you guys are probably used to our executive producer, Daniel Brown, joining us or a guest, but I'm going to talk today about crime and just the impact it's having in and around the Baton Rouge area because it's no longer a Baton Rouge problem. It's become a parish wide problem. It's also becoming a problem that other parishes are now starting to see. For example, Livingston, the Denham, the Juban exits, that crime is starting to trickle into other parishes. In Ascension Parish, you've got Gonzales kind of starting to see it. It's like the beginning edges. Same thing goes for West Baton Rouge. Right over that bridge, you're starting to see petty crime starting to pick up. So it's obviously something that impacts us all. It makes us question locking the doors, leaving keys in cars, perhaps even taking a gun with you just to go to the grocery store. And guys, these are not things people are used to, especially if you go out towards some of the more rural parishes. And when I say rural, yes, I'm talking the Ibervilles, the Point Capiz, even Livingston. There are a lot of people who just leave their keys in their cars. It's something that people are used to. You live in a gated property. I say gated, more like you have a gate on your driveway. So you assume you're good. Or you have even a trailer or your camper. Now people are parking a vehicle to block it so that the trailers can't be stolen because it's things like that that we are now starting to see. I, as a reporter, sometimes think, does the police really need to tell us that we need to warn the public to lock their cars or don't leave your keys in your car? Isn't that common sense? But then when you think about it, you have a lot of people who are so trustworthy that they just say, nobody's pulling into my driveway, nobody's coming in my garage. Well, guys, what they're doing nowadays is they're just pulling on a handle. The car's unlocked, so, or if the key's inside, now your car's stolen. And that's something you're going to remember for the rest of your life. And I guess that's what we're talking about. That it's all sorts of crime. Crime doesn't come in the form of just a shooting. Yes, that's the headline that we're starting to see a lot more of. And sadly, in fact, I read one of the comments the other day and it said it's the same headline, the name just changes out. Unfortunately, it is. It's becoming Baton Rouge police investigating another murder. East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office responding to another homicide. And the names are changing. But the difference is, and this is why I stress this to all of my staff, that I don't want it to be just another victim. That victim is a person. They're a name, they're a mom, they're a dad, they're a son, they're a daughter. Let's put a face to that name. And that's why we always do our best to make sure we give that victim side and give that family even an outlet to be able to say something. So I'm going to start with a few weeks ago, I go to a Rotary Club meeting and it's for St. George. The guest speaker is the newly elected East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor President Sid Edwards. So, yes, I'm a reporter and I've been covering crime extensively, but there was something different about hearing him say some of what he did say at this meeting. Majority know that the mayor president, he is Coach Edwards. A lot of people, for them, it's weird to say, hey, Mayor Edwards. They know him as Coach Edwards because he's been a football coach pretty much all his life. And this is his first time in a political role as the mayor president. His reason for running was that he was simply fed up with the crime. In fact, January 1st of 2024, so last year, first day of the year, he was still the coach at Estrema High School, and one of his own football players was shot and killed while walking down the street. He was a 15-year-old, and he was one of four people shot on that very first day of 2024. Fast forward, two 16-year-olds and a 14-year-old are arrested for his murder, but a grand jury did not indict them. And there are various reasons that can happen. They didn't have enough evidence, or something was wrong somewhere. And a lot of times we're not going to be able to get into exactly what happened to a grand jury. And when I say that we can't get into it, I mean that we literally cannot go sit in on a grand jury. So a lot of times those are pretty much secret. If things leak out, that's the only way you're going to find out what actually did happen in a grand jury. So because a grand jury doesn't have enough evidence, or for whatever reason they failed to indict these teenagers, they are released from jail. Now, one interesting issue that comes up is that they're juveniles. So 16-year-olds and a 14-year-old, their name can't be released to the public. Their mugshots can't be released. Not only that, their rap sheet, if they have one, is sealed until you become an adult. And now in Louisiana, 17 is considered an adult. That actually just recently changed during the legislature last year. So last month, downtown Baton Rouge is packed and the Christmas parade is rolling. It's wrapping up. There's a shooting right up on the levee, and a woman is shot. She has non life threatening injuries. She's transported to a hospital, but nonetheless, a shooting. And of course, a lot of people are panicked. They hear shots ringing out. They don't know what's happening. They don't know what direction it's coming from. Imagine yourself there. We've all been there. We've been at a parade. This is Louisiana. Be it a Christmas parade, be it Mardi Gras, we've all been there. All because a group of kids had an argument. There was a shooting. Police arrested those kids, and believe it or not, they were the same teenagers that were arrested for the January 1st murder, the one that they were released for. And now they're back on the streets shooting. That's the news that Coach Edwards read and was simply shocked that one of his students died at the hands of fellow juveniles. But then those same kids, y'all, are out and about continuing to live a life of shooting without realizing the consequences. It highlights a systematic problem. Often, police are blamed for high crime when in reality, it's similar to an onion where you just keep peeling back those layers, layer after layer, to get to that root. In this case, the root cause. What is it? Well, it's not one thing, guys. The judges are releasing alleged criminals. The bonds are set extremely low. District attorney and his staff, they're underfunded. They don't have enough money to run the office. In fact, I'm going to throw this statistic out for you guys. The East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney has 55 assistant district attorneys, but their caseload, their backlog, is 22,000. You heard me right, 22,000 cases. And it's not that, hey, we tackled 100 this month. You probably added on another 100 as well. So are you really even making a difference with 55 assistant district attorneys? So that alone is a problem. Um, there's also the issue of, what do children do after they get out of school? Where is an extracurricular activity? Maybe you don't have the money to pay for an extracurricular activity. So what is there for kids to do? One of the other things that Coach Sid Edwards, see, I even call him Coach Sid Edwards said is that what he needs to start doing is that the amount of churches and pastors in East Baton Rouge Parish, he's going to do his best to try to get with them and come up with extracurricular activities to get the kids off of the streets. And that's because we are starting to see more and more juvenile crime and even crimes of passion where people simply lose their temper. But instead of having just an old fashioned argument, it turns into gunfire. Sadly, once a bullet is fired, it's going to land somewhere or in someone, meaning the potential of ending a life. So, what is the resolution? Better yet, is there even a solution to it? Mayor President Edwards is expected to have a meeting with the governor now to figure out how to curb crime. That comes after the Troop NOLA. That's the program that launched last year, for those of you who may remember it, in New Orleans. Over 100 troopers infiltrated New Orleans, and sometimes the mere presence of a law enforcement officer makes a big difference. In fact, New Orleans has kind of touted that, hey, we have seen a decrease in crime. The entire reason for all of this was, in just a few weeks, New Orleans is hosting Super Bowl. And then we just had a terrorist attack in New Orleans. So obviously, this is really, really, really important to make sure that we're putting out to the world pretty much, hey, New Orleans is a safe spot. But then we just had a terrorist attack on January 1st. Louisiana relies heavily on tourism dollars, and a lot of that tourism comes through New Orleans. So this is a really big deal for Louisiana to be able to host the Super Bowl. Because of that, the governor last year got with the superintendent of state police and they launched Troop NOLA. So maybe there's the potential of a conversation there with the governor and something for Baton Rouge that at this point something's got to give. But what is that? So we don't know what that conversation looks like, but Mayor President Sid Edwards did allude to he is planning to meet with the governor. And there were so many other things that he talked about, guys, that he touched on it, should I say. He wasn't ready to start delving out all the details. Prime example for Crime Stoppers. For those of you who are familiar with Crime Stoppers, it's been around for decades now. And Baton Rouge actually has a pretty successful Crime Stoppers program. This is where you can call anonymously. So, say if I witness something or I happen to know, one of my friends confided in me and said, "Oh, yeah, I killed so and so." I can anonymously call Crime Stoppers. I do not have to give a name. I don't give anything. In fact, you're given a case number. That's it. That's how you're identified, by a number. And it used to be that you get, I believe, up to $5,000 if you call for a murder and the person is arrested, convicted of the actual crime. I believe there is conversation now to up that reward up to $10,000 if you call on a homicide in East Baton Rouge Parish within the first 48 hours. $10,000 is a lot, guys. So that can make a big, big impact. And hopefully it's kind of enticing people to make the call, enticing people that once you make that call, the police are able to go arrest somebody, get somebody off the street. But it goes right back to that onion that I was talking about, the layers that you got to peel back. The biggest problem police are having right now is they are going to make that arrest. They end up behind bars. The case then goes to a judge. You have to go before a judge because legally you are given bond. It's very rare. So in first degree murder is usually when bond is denied by a judge. Every other time, legally, you have the right to have a bond. But when you're setting a bond, a judge is setting a bond of only $3,000. You only have to pay 12% of that. You're basically paying a little over $300 and you're out. So police go arrest these people. But the problem is that after they make the arrest, the person ends up behind bars. But then legally, everyone has the right to go before a judge for bond. That is, unless you're charged with first degree murder. First degree murder, you can ask for no bond. The district attorney, of course, can ask for no bond. But when a judge is setting a $3,000 bond on something that's a violent crime, you only have to pay 12% of that. So maybe paying a little over $300 and you're back out on the streets. Of course, you're supposed to go back to court, but if you go back to court, if you miss court, a bench warrant is issued. So now police are back out looking for you. Do you see why police kind of get tired of, wait, we keep doing our jobs and we keep chasing the same people over and over and over? So this is where I mean that the onion's got to peel back, that it's not simply, hey, police aren't doing their job. Judges need to be held accountable. The district attorney, when it comes to prosecuting some of these cases, are they being held accountable? So it is several different layers. So I know we've talked heavily so far about the mayor president, Sid Edwards, and kind of his plan. Mind you, he's about not even a month into the job. Those are all of his plans. His main reason for even running and winning was the crime in this parish. So the crime is no longer limited to just East Baton Rouge Parish. It's kind of like I said at the start, that it's trickling out to other parts of other parishes. But let me go back. I think it's so common to hear, oh, another shooting in North Baton Rouge. Oh, another shooting in 70805. These are some of the zip codes that we're used to hearing. But it's no longer North Baton Rouge. You're starting to see it in Shenandoah. You're starting to see it pretty much all over East Baton Rouge Parish. It's spreading to Zachary, Baker, Central. There is nobody immune in this parish any longer. So last year, what did we end up with as far as the number of homicides? 113. That was the total number in 2024. And I want to kind of read this to you guys. And again, if you don't already follow us, unfilteredwithkiran.com, we put out some very in-depth articles. And we did this one about an in-depth look into the stats last year for the homicides. So 2021. That was the highest year of homicides in East Baton Rouge Parish. We ended with 151 homicides. Now, let me explain the difference. There can be cases, in fact, I believe last year the final number was 123, but that can include negligent homicide, which means somebody was accidentally killed, or um, other justified homicides, like if somebody is coming at you and you shoot in self-defense, those are considered justified. So that does not go into the final number that you turn into the FBI. The final number is the 151 that I said in 2021. So I'm kind of going to break this down to you. 2022, we see a tad bit of a drop. Then in 2023, we see a little bit of a lower drop. However, and I guess I should give you those numbers, sorry. 2022, it was 112 homicides. 2023, it dropped down to 102. Last year, we kind of saw that uptick, went up to 113. Now, we are a month into this year. In fact, the year isn't even over yet. And I'll say this, a lot of weekends, I'm blessed that we have so many sources, but the amount of shootings we have had, the phone rings nonstop with, hey, there's another shooting, there's another shooting, there's another one. I'm going to kind of tell you guys about this one, that this was the weekend of January the 12th. We had 7 people injured in a matter of 6 shootings, including a toddler. All of that happened in a span of 11 hours. So I can't even sit here and say, hey guys, there were 6 shootings in a matter of the entire weekend. No, 11 hours, y'all. That's unacceptable. And then it just goes to point to the problem of we're shooting just to shoot at this point. And that's where the police are just getting fed up to the point of where do we begin? And it goes back to my onion layer. Sorry, I keep bringing up this onion, but the police has issues with funding. $39,000 a year. Why does anybody want to be a police officer for that little money? But then because of that, there's not enough staff. You don't have maybe enough officers working a shift, or a reduced number of officers working on a shift compared to what they did have 10, 15 years ago. And I'll even tell you this, in talking to a lot of people, the Baton Rouge Police Department, there was a time, guys, when that academy would roll around, there was a very long waiting period. Very long. You had hundreds of officers wanting to, or hundreds of people, should I say, signing up because they wanted to be a police officer and signing up to be in the academy. This goes back to Mayor President Sid Edwards. The current academy that is going on with the Baton Rouge Police Department, it started with 13 people. 13. By the time the mayor president got there to speak to them on the very first day, they started the academy at 7 o'clock in the morning. He got there at 9 o'clock. They were already down to 12 people. Now they're down to 8 people in this academy. So that kind of paints the picture of nobody wants to be a police officer, the dangers associated with the job, the low pay, the times of the job, the stress it puts on your family, if you even have one and you're able to have one because the job is so demanding. But then add this crime to it. So going back to that weekend, the January 12th weekend, the amount of shootings they had, it was just shooting after shooting after shooting. But one of the ones I want to tell you about is that a 4-year-old ends up shot in the leg and ends up at the hospital. He accidentally shot himself, meaning somebody left a gun out and he was able to get to it. It's a child. They don't know what they're doing. So he shoots himself in the leg. That was one of 7 people injured that weekend. So then the following weekend, which happens to be Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, it's another violent weekend. 6 shootings this time. In of those 6 shootings, 2 people end up dead. One of them is a 48-year-old woman allegedly shot by a 14-year-old. I'm going to come back to that one because that alone is a podcast. But in this specific weekend, there were several, or I should say 2, technically not several, but 2, where people were shot either outside of a fast food restaurant, a Burger King and a McDonald's, or they ended up there after they were shot. Now, for those of you who don't know, Baton Rouge has what is called a shot spotter. And that is basically a technology that alerts police or paramedics and EMS that when it sounds like it has heard shots being fired. And that alone has helped it has helped police respond to several different shootings in the area. In fact, that's how one of the shootings that happened at a fast food joint on that specific weekend outside of a McDonald's. And not even 12 hours before, there was a teenager found shot outside of a Burger King in East Baton Rouge Parish. So that specific weekend, again, you have 6 shootings. 2 of them are deadly, 4 are non-fatal. I want to move on to the 48-year-old woman. And I guess let me start with, we have a great staff here at Unfiltered. We do. What we do is really hard work because it's emotionally tolling. It takes a toll on your mental health because we're talking to so many victims. Reading the story, and I read it, I didn't write it, but me reading it left me in tears. I cannot imagine the pain of that family. A 48-year-old woman ends up shot and killed by a 14-year-old. That's bad enough, correct? It happened in front of her 8-year-old grandson. He sat there and told his mom what his grandmother's final words were. He's the one who told his own mom. He calls her Momo. Momo's been shot. Momo's been shot. Because the grandson and the grandmother were very, very close to each other. Bad enough, right? The shooter, a 14-year-old. His mother, which props to that mother, his mother is the one who turned him into police. But a 14-year-old, and the problem here is, again, it's 14. He's a juvenile. He's not close to 17. Now, it is up to the district attorney if he chooses to charge this 14-year-old as an adult. If he charges him as an adult, well, then it's up to his discretion if his name and mugshot are released. But this 14-year-old and about three other men, I say men, I'm sorry, three other young kids, juveniles, young teenagers, whatever you want to call them, they're in a stolen car. So let me give you that story. What we have discovered is, and this is all in talking to the family of the 48-year-old, and they're about to head out to a birthday celebration. A car is on, and in a matter of a split second, that car is stolen. So later on, the grandmother and grandson decide to go out. They happen to see that stolen car and get behind it. Don't know what happened. If the 14-year-old kind of figured out, hey, they're chasing us or whatnot, 14-year-old comes, shoots her. She died inside of her car in front of her 8-year-old grandson. Her daughters, two daughters, and her grandson are now trying to figure out, where do we even begin picking up the pieces? And seriously, where do you even begin? 48 years old and gunned down because she happened to see the car that they stole? There's just so much. And in fact, the part that hurts so much is to be able to read the last words that she said. She was shot, and I believe those were her last words: I've been shot. And her daughter actually ended up hearing the commotion. They're hearing the police, they're hearing the sirens from the ambulance, and they ended up getting a ride from a stranger saying, you've got to take me because we don't know what's happening. Remember, their car's been stolen. The other car, her mom is in there. Her mom and her son are in there. And she hitches a ride with a stranger, a neighbor, or somebody like that. When I'm saying stranger, not a complete stranger. And they get out to the scene, and there's this massive scene going on with police, crime scene tape, but she sees her car. Of course, she's running to the scene and she sees her son, and that's when the son is saying, Momo's been shot, Momo's been shot. They don't know what to do. They don't know what's going on. They go back home, and that's when they learn later that her mom did not make it. And they're starting to glue the pieces together. And in talking to the family, they're so thankful that the mother of this 14-year-old did go do the right thing and turned her son in. So props to her. But same thing, they're just so torn. Why? Because they stole a car, allegedly? And her mom happened to be behind them because she recognized the car. This goes back to what I started to say in the beginning, that we think of crime as a deadly shooting, but it's the crime that a car gets stolen, your home gets broken into. Maybe as a woman, we're walking into a grocery store and your purse is ripped off of you. It's things like that that will shape your entire future now, because from now on, when you're walking, you're going to hold on to that purse a little bit tighter. Or me, prime example, or especially around the holidays, but now majority of the times when I'm walking out, I have a key in my hands, even though you don't need that nowadays. But if nothing else, I could use my key to hopefully protect me. It's things like that when I say that your future is shaped by all of these things. She went after someone who allegedly stole her car, her daughter's car, and ended up dead for it. So I guess I should actually tell you, the 48-year-old, her name is Latasha Thomas. And some of this, I'm going to be reading it to you. And again, feel free to go look at it on our website. If you don't have our app, download it, Unfiltered with Kiran, Apple Store or the Google Store. But the Latasha Thomas's family actually spoke with us. And some of these things that I just want to read you, the 8-year-old wanted to talk to us. And so this is a mix between her two daughters talking to us and the grandson. But it basically started with that they told us that they literally stole it within seconds. That's the car. They were headed out to a family brunch because it was one of the sisters' birthdays, one of the daughter's birthdays, should I say. The other sister arrives at the house and stepped inside the home just for a quick second. In that very moment, a group of teenagers, that's when they allegedly stole the rental car. It was not even her car, it was a rental car from the driveway. And that's what they're saying, that it happened just within seconds. So that theft is reported to police. They're waiting for the police to get there. But while they're waiting, the 8-year-old grandson, Omari, and the grandmother decide to go to the store. That's because they were very close. In fact, quote, she says that she always had my son with her, like always. They were always together. If you saw him, you saw her. And even though the day had gotten off to a rough start, the plan was that they were still going to go to brunch and they were going to go as a family. So a short while later, that's when the two sisters, remember, they're still at the house because they're waiting on the police to report that theft. And that's when they start hearing all these sirens and they don't know what's happening. So the sister ends up calling her mom, and she's calling repeatedly. But it's very uncommon for their mom to not answer the phone. Think about it. We all know our parents that, hey, I know my mom. If she's busy, she's not going to answer. But if you know your mother or your loved one always answers the phone and they're not this one time, of course you're going to panic. And it ends up being their worst nightmare. So, for some strange reason, she ended up taking her grandson with her that day. This is the sister telling us this, that I kept calling, but she wouldn't answer. My nerves were shot. So, since both vehicles are now gone, one of the sisters flags down a generous stranger and asks for a ride, unaware of where she's actually going. They turn onto Plank Road in Baton Rouge. Lots of police, ambulance. She's trying to tell the stranger, go this way, this is the way. Rushing to the scene, Beyonce arrives to find police and ambulance surrounding her car, ran to the scene. This is the part that I say is so gut-wrenching, that just reading a story hurts. And in fact, our reporter who wrote this story even texted me this morning that she's having such a hard time because she spoke to this family or she listened to the interviews. One of our other staff members actually did the interviews, but props to both of them. Quote, I heard my baby screaming, Mom, Mom, they killed Momo. They killed Momo. I just lost it. The sister said that she kept on holding out hope that her mother was hopefully rushed to a hospital. They're watching from the side. She's not allowed to go to her son because police are processing the scene. So the other sister now, she's hearing everything on the phone. And she doesn't know what's going on. She's still at the house because technically they're still waiting on the police to arrive to report that initial theft. It's when the police later arrived that they learned that their mother didn't make it. This quote is what one of our reporters said that they're having such a hard time dealing with. My nephew had my mother's blood all over him. Let me let that sink in for you guys just for a quick minute. My nephew had my mother's blood all over him. Can you imagine? 8 years old? And you just watched everything happen? I kind of already broke down the why they were even behind him, that they recognized the stolen car. This is the quote that they saw the car, and by them knowing what kind of car they had just stolen, they took her life. For a tragedy like this to happen, and for him to have no type of heart just to kill her in front of my son. My nephew had my mother's blood all over him. The suspects, they're all wearing ski masks. And this is according to the family that we're being told. They're all wearing ski masks. One of them, who is identified as that 14-year-old, is said to have gotten out of the car, and that's when he shot Latasha Thomas through the glass. Another tough quote. He told me those were her last words before she closed her eyes in front of him. He shot me. He took his grandmother's life in front of him. My son is only 8 years old. So, of course, the 8-year-old saw something. He saw 4 guys in a car, but their faces are all covered. So it's hard to say, oh, yeah, I recognize this one. But he was able to say, hey, one was chubby, one was skinny. But he couldn't identify anymore because they're all in ski masks. Meanwhile, a grandson, 2 daughters have to grow up on their own. One of the sisters, she says, hey, I have kids, I have a fiance, so I kind of have a family. Whereas my sister, her mom was her whole world. Where do you even begin to pick up the pieces? And y'all, this is just one of the stories that I've been able to personalize for you. I mean, our staff does an awesome job personalizing so many of the victims. But this is why crime is out of hand in Baton Rouge. This is why the newly elected mayor president ran for office. Being a lifelong coach, the crime has gotten so bad that something's got to give at this point. So, yes, he is expected to meet with the governor. That meeting hasn't happened. We're going to continue to keep you updated on that and what comes out of that. Maybe we need an excess of troopers in in the city of Baton Rouge, but all of East Baton Rouge Parish. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to continue to keep you updated. I will stress this again, that if you don't have our app, go download it, Unfiltered with Kiran. Feel free to read our stuff. This one was a tough podcast, but it's a harsh reality people are having to face. And it's changing the course of lives in Baton Rouge. In fact, I know I've done interviews with business owners who have said, I don't know if I want to stay here anymore. They're watching their own businesses get shot up. They're catching it on surveillance video. In fact, I remember talking to a business on Government Street. It had happened so much that he just kept asking himself, why do I even stay? So at the end of the day, not only does it impact our safety, but it impacts us staying where we stay. Do you move out of East Baton Rouge Parish? It's why Livingston, West Baton Rouge, Ascension parishes are seeing the massive growth that they're seeing because people are starting to move out of the city. But now the crime's trickling there as well. We hope we were able to give you a little bit more insight into the crime problem here. And as always, we welcome your input. Give us your suggestions. You like the podcast, you don't like it, give us your reviews, subscribe to us, tell your friends, tell your families about it, and take a listen. As always, we thank you for joining us for this episode of Louisiana Unfiltered. Until next time.